Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's panel, and we'll be talking about Citi's Chosen Name Initiative. And we'll also be talking about inclusive product design, marketing, and allyship for the transgender and non-binary community. So I am Nikki Darden. My pronouns are she and her, and I lead internal brand and global integration at Citi. It is a pleasure to be joining the Out and Equal conference today, and really to have the opportunity to talk about this initiative that just really amplifies how Citi takes a stand on societal issues and our Chosen Name initiative. So first and foremost, I want to be clear, and I think this is something that folks here probably know. Brands do have a role to play in standing up and having a voice on issues that matter. So not only is it the right thing to do, but now more than ever, consumers look to brands to stand up for issues that matter. In fact, there was a recent Harris poll that found that more than 2/3 of consumers believe that business leaders need to help address inequities in our society. And at Citi, we've been doing just that. We've been working really hard to use our corporate voice to champion gender equality, racial equity, and LGBTQIA+ equality as well. And I have been so proud that we are the first major bank to launch this Chosen Name initiative with Mastercard. And we launched it almost exactly 1 year ago today. I think we're a week and a half out from our 1-year anniversary. And it just reinforces the ongoing commitment that Citi has made to the LGBTQIA+ community, and the work that we're trying to do to help address key issues that face the transgender and non-binary community. So feeling recognized, accepted, and empowered to be their best selves. So before we jump in, I would love to share with you the ad that we created to launch the Chosen Name feature. So if we could play the list.
What about Austin? Or Alex? Austin's nice. Yeah.
Okay. Hear me out. Langston. All right.
I was thinking about Gregory.
Who?
Gregory!
Gregory. James? Hey, Ma. Yep, still narrowing it down. Robert. Like Grandpa? I kind of like Justin.
This one's for you. Nice to meet you, Justin.
If you are transgender or non-binary and go by a different first name, let's update your eligible Citi credit card.
So proud of that work, and it gives me chills every time I see it. So as I said, last year, 1 year ago, we partnered with Mastercard to become the first major bank to launch this Chosen Name initiative, which Mastercard calls True Name. It's okay to call it that, across the US. And it provides our customers the ability to use their self-identified chosen first name on eligible branded credit cards across customer service channels, phone, online, mobile access points without requiring a legal name change. That's the difference. Why did we decide to do this? And why did we decide to do it now? You know, I as a person who was charged with, well, I mean, I appointed myself to be the one to really help sell this into the organization, and we'll hear from other folks who did that as well. It's really hard to argue with the facts, right? Choosing your name and a name that reflects your true identity is a crucial step toward living authentically. And for many, it's also about safety and ensuring service. So according to the National Center for Transgender Equality, 70% of trans people go by a name other than their legal name. 68% of survey respondents reported that none of their IDs reflected their chosen name. And a full 1/3 of transgender people reported harassment or denial of service whenever they used an ID that reflected a name or gender marker that didn't align with their gender expression. And so what we saw at Citi was an opportunity to help close that gap as it relates to our products. And so we launched this feature to really make a positive impact on our clients, particularly in the transgender and non-binary community. So by building, this new understanding and acting in ways that are truly inclusive and working together across the organization to move things forward, and then beyond the organization across the broader community as allies, we can be better allies to one another across all of our diverse and intersectional identities and experiences. So we are now going to take you through some of the inner workings to getting this project created and off the ground and lifted and brought to the world. So I am going to invite some of my co-conspirators to the stage. If you could join the virtual stage and turn your cameras on. I am excited to have a rock star panel of people with me. And some of these folks are key members of the team, all are key members of the team really, and how we brought this to life. So I'd love for everyone to introduce themselves. So first, if you could introduce yourself and share your pronouns and talk about at a high level your role in the launch. I will start with Blake.
Thank you, Nikki. My name is Blake Ingram. My pronouns are he, him. I am the head of digital health here at Citi. I had the privilege really to work on this project, lead a lot of the customer experience.
Blake, you're breaking up a little bit. I think Blake may have frozen on us. So I will move on, and if Blake comes back, we'll come back to Blake. But Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Jen Reno. I use she, her pronouns. I am an associate media director at Publicis Health Media, but I'm also the global co-lead of our Egalite LGBTQ plus BRG. I was very privileged to have been brought in as sort of a consultant on this piece of business, and it was one of the most nurturing things I've ever done. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of that I've ever gotten to do in my entire career, and I'm really looking forward to speaking about that a little bit more here shortly.
Awesome. And Annie, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Annie Tritt. I use August in my personal life, which hence knowing why this project is important. I'm a freelance photographer based on the East and West Coast, and I was thrilled to be a part of this. I have a project I've been working on for about 6 years now with transgender and non-binary youth, and know how important it is for them to not only know that they can have this, but to see themselves reflected in the world.
Thank you. And for the purposes of this conversation, I will call you August, but I want everyone to Google Annie Tritt. You will be beyond impressed. Okay, so my first question, since Blake was not able to, he had to drop due to technical issues. Hopefully he'll be able to join us. I worked extremely closely with Blake, and he played such a critical role in this. Actually, I'll talk a little bit about that role that he played, and then we'll move on with some of the other questions. But when Mastercard first launched True Name, they did it with no banks on board. They decided, listen, we think this is important. We want to enable our issuers, our card issuers, to be able to do that. And when I heard about it, I was like, we have to do this. And first couple of conversations, it was like, it's really hard. I don't know if we can do it. And I was directed to Blake, which is why I'm crushed that he's not able to stay on the call. But Blake made a way out of no way. He found every sort of way around every barrier and just really figuring out how to get this done, and worked with over 40 internal teams to bring this to life. So I'm not going to share everything that he did, but I just in case he's unable to come back, I want to make sure that people understand the critical role that he played, and quite frankly, how important it is to have passionate allies who are involved, who've got skills and talents within the organization, and also understand the needs of the community, and can really lean in, or are actively doing that. So we'll come back to Blake if he's able to join us again. So I'm going to scurry on over to Jen. And Jen, you actually said something that I identify with so much. I'm an old. I've been in banking and financial services since the mid 90s, and I can say that this is the most rewarding work of my career, hands down. So I am 100% aligned with you. And I appreciate the way that you leaned in, and we reached out to several of our Citi colleagues who are in the trans and non-binary community, but you really took a leadership role on the agency side in providing those insights and sort of keeping us honest as we were doing this work. So can you talk a little bit about sort of your role and some of the consulting that you did on the initiative, and just really what's exciting you about it?
Yeah, I think that the whole process itself was very full circle, right? Initially, the agency who was working on the business reached out to Egalite, and Egalite was able to bring us in, and we were interviewed. They asked us a number of questions about, some of our life's experience. And then they put together a bunch of sort of campaign ideas and sort of moved forward from that. And then they brought us in and presented them to us and gave us a chance to see them. And I think one of the things that is most important to talk about here is this idea that positive intent always doesn't lead to positive outcomes. And what I mean by that is the first time the agency partners were showing us the creative ideas, I had to turn my camera off because I started crying for the wrong reasons, right? They were trying so very hard to put together this message that was very inspiring. But what people don't tend to recognize is that when cisgender people don't have transgender people involved, they tend to think of us as being sad, or our lives being hard, or, we're going to misgender and dead name this person so you know that they're trans, or XYZ. And that was really, really tough for me to watch. And we gave a lot of feedback, and we worked with the agency back and forth a lot, and we talked about a number of different things. I saw somebody in the chat earlier mention the idea that they really like true name compared to preferred name, and we had to talk about, why we don't like to use the term preferred pronouns and why we don't like to use the term preferred name, and how my pronouns are my pronouns, I don't prefer them. And like asking me that feels to me, and like many trans people, like a microaggression. So it was like doing a lot of education work alongside of sort of the agency partners. We did this, and it was just a fabulous opportunity to really educate and pull people along. And hopefully as we went, we were able to help the agency understand why it was important to make sure that we had diverse backgrounds working on our campaigns that were targeting diverse audiences.
No, I think that's so important. I think as we went through this process, exactly what you said, everyone involved had so much positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. I don't know that this is the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
And would reach out to our colleagues as well to just run things by them, like, help me to understand, please weigh in, give us guidance. And everyone was so open with their time in doing that, because people were really invested in making sure that we got this right. We didn't just rely on Jen and other folks from the community to do this sort of internal to our organizations, our joint organizations. We also brought in GLAAD as a key and critical partner on this, because if folks aren't familiar with GLAAD, they are one of the world's largest LGBTQIA plus media advocacy organizations. I think most people know GLAAD, and they really shared a perspective across everything that we did. So not just the creative, also we had that conversation about what do we call this, preferred name, true name, chosen name, etc. The media, the talent selection. They also played a really huge role in educating our leadership team so that they understood not just the importance and criticality of this work, but also how to talk about it, because that was something that they didn't understand. What, just as a follow-up, is there anything particularly around the creative, because you talked about where it started. So there's that how it started and how it's going. So now with how it's going, Jen,
Yeah.
what's the thing that really gets you excited here?
So I think for me, we came a long way, right? And we saw that final spot that you saw just a minute ago, but there was one thing missing from it and it just didn't quite feel finished yet. And I said, you know what we should do? We need to have the spouse say Justin's name, because the first time as a transgender person, somebody says your name to you, the first time you feel validated in sort of somebody seeing you for who you are, the first time somebody recognizes that this isn't a name I've chosen, this is my name, I own it, I possess it. That adds so much. And when I saw the spot finalized with that last little bit of detail, I went from crying in the beginning because of how hurt I was to crying every time I see the spot now because of how much it resonates with me personally in my own experience. And it just thrills me every time I see it. I just think it's something that's really important to talk about, again, is the importance of making sure that you're bringing in diverse voices and diverse faces and diverse backgrounds and experiences to make sure that everything is happening and really working really well. And I think one of the things that was most impressive about the entire experience was when the campaign went live, I was able to share it with some of my friends who are transgender, and they just looked at me digitally because we were in quarantine, and they said, Jen, they said, I wanted to hate this because I wanted to believe that they were just, checking a box and just targeting trans people for our money. But I see this and I hear it and I hear myself and I see myself and I feel seen in a way I've never felt seen before on TV or in an ad. And to me, I think that was what made this most special to me, was that people of my own community saw the work that we had done, for the perspective of really helping to put forth positive messaging, which I think is a big part of what made this so special. Is it was a happy moment and not a sad moment that made this campaign truly special.
Absolutely, thank you. I don't want to. I want to keep going. And August, turn to you so we can talk a little bit about, we talked about on the agency side and on the city side, how we engage the community, but we also found it extremely important, of course, to ensure that both in front of and behind the camera, we were also engaging transgender and non-binary people. So terrible stat that I'll point out is that trans people only represent 0.3% or are only represented in 0.3% of advertising, which is a little bit crazy, or a lot of bit crazy. And so it was very important for us to be sure that we put the community front and center. I'd love to hear Annie, apologize. When we reached out to you, when the agency reached out to you to shoot this campaign, can you take us back to how you approached it, and what you really thought was important from a creative direction perspective, that it was critical that you bring to life in these images?
Sure. First off, I was thrilled. I almost thought it was a joke. Like, really? I'm going to get to do the exact thing that I want to do. But and I just want to reiterate how important it is to be seen and also to see yourself. And so approaching it, I wanted by the time you got to me, a lot of this work had been done. And so I was really impressed with, by the time it got to me, how informed everyone was and how much work had been done. And so sticking with that and making sure that the cast were all trans and non-binary and that they weren't representing stereotypes or tropes, or, you know, that they were real people really being themselves and not that sad story. Like, these are happy people with successful lives, and to reflect that in the images, and to really, I photograph with heart. I don't know how else to say it. So that I want people to see these and care about the person and like the person in the image visually before they know what the story is, and then maybe be moved, because I know that's how change happens. And so approaching that, and then having a lot of dialogue about with our, you know, with the casting and with the clothes and with the location we created, making sure that we stayed on board with that. And I felt like it was just really a group effort there.
Yeah, and the point of the clothes, we actually asked the cast to come with their own wardrobe, bring wardrobe options, because we really wanted them to feel themselves and in their own skin, right? August, one of the things that you and I have talked about is just how the set felt. Can you talk a little bit about sort of just that atmosphere as we shot this?
It was electric. It was exciting. Everyone knew that we were doing something special, and so there was such an energy and of care, and yeah, and a lot of the team was queer too, so that was important. And the people that weren't we did some interviews coming over and saying that they almost were crying, you know, for the same reason Jen was, that they had to like not cry because we were in the middle of creating something, but hearing the stories that maybe they weren't familiar with was really moving. And so I think everyone knew that what we were doing really mattered, and that we were getting to do it in a way that was not stereotypical, in a way that reflected beauty and strength. And it created such an energy of like not wanting it to end. I think we all wanted to go right back the next week and do it again.
Yeah, I agree. I've never been on a set that felt like that. It just, yeah, it was amazing. It's like, yeah, I don't want this to stop. And you mentioned the interviews, so perfect segue. So August actually partnered with us in conducting some conversations with the talent during the photo shoot, so sort of between shots. And we have put that together in a behind the scenes video that if you didn't cry, I'm just going to warn you, if you didn't cry or get any kind of emotional before, for me, this is the one that really gets me. So could we play the behind the scenes video?
There's a part of me that's very female, like it's profoundly female. And I'm also, you know, male. And to have both aspects of myself combined, to me, is just a gift. I mean, it's who I am, so.
Gender in itself is a wide spectrum of a multitude of identities.
So many people have fought corporations, have fought the government, have fought their families just to show up as they are.
There are places I go where they still have to call my legal name out, and I like get up, and I've definitely had it where people just look at me and they're like, I didn't call you. And it's like, no, you did. I will verify my last name, my date of birth, my social security number, whatever you need. It's really just upsetting.
I used to get nervous, like, oh my God, you know what I mean? They don't match, now I have to explain this whole story. And so that's why I'm really appreciative this came along.
On the 1 degree, it's a matter of feeling seen, and on the far extreme, it's a matter of feeling physically safe.
It's so important that people are able to be represented and go by the names that they choose and reflect who they are.
It's really not that big of a deal, but in the context of what's going on, it definitely is a big step.
Every time you swipe your card, you're gonna have a smile on your face and you're gonna see yourself, your true self being represented. So I think it's super important.
At least, you know, that thing that, you know, made me feel less than, that's gone now.
It's right there in print. It's who I am. It's me.
And it starts with your name, you know? It's who you are.
To name ourselves is a basic right.
Jan, I'm right there with you. Yeah, it's really powerful work. Thank you, August, for everything that you've done for this campaign. I mean, I can't say it enough. So the other person who has played probably the most critical role in this work is Blake, and I think Blake is back with us. So I'm going to invite Blake to answer a few questions. We actually have a couple of questions in the chat that might be a good place for us to start, Blake. And so that is specific to the question of buy-in. So can we talk a little bit about sort of what we did? Well, we can talk about what you did, because you and I both were sort of on this path to getting buy-in, and we were tackling different parts of the organization and getting that. So can you talk about what you did and how you really helped to bring this to life and build alignment within the organization, particularly in the digital organization where you sit, to get this work done?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nikki, and apologies for the technical difficulties earlier. I don't think I had the chance to even introduce myself. So I am Blake. You may have heard some things about me. And I honestly had the privilege to work on this. This project, the Chosen Name project, you know, Nikki brought it to us and I was like, wow, I work on a lot of great things in digital, and this one was, I think, special, and we knew it right from the beginning. So, Nikki, to your question about buy-in, you know, there are a couple of things I say about this project, and I'll definitely say it was one of the favorite that I've ever worked on. It's also the most challenging. I'll save that for later, but I'll say it was one of my favorites because buy-in really, at every step of the way, and it was really, it was almost, you know, I think a lot of this work does bring out a lot of emotion to people. And it was emotional at times going and seeing the various leaders, the various groups within Citi and saying, this is a problem that we recognize and we think we can create a great solution for it. And at every step of the way, people said, I'm so happy you're working on this. What can I do? And to me, that was a lot of fun. And it was, honestly, it was even inspiring in the ways that I would get contacts after I would ask for help, and someone would say, we're so happy, you know, Citi has multiple pillars that we're trying to drive value on, but to see our employees living our values in our work in this kind of way, people were just so happy to help out. So buy-in, I would say, was not too difficult. Everyone really liked and wanted to contribute to such an important initiative.
And Blake, how surprised were you by that? I mean, we work at a company that really prioritizes diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? I think we can say that clearly. If this initiative certainly is an example of that, right? But yet and still, we are a bank. And so typically to get these things done, we need a robust business case, and we need to show how much revenue it's going to drive and how much loyalty it will inspire, and all of those kinds of things, which, you know, yes, there's a business case for this. Yes, we looked at that holistically around not just, you know, the customer aspects, but also the brand aspects, right? We've gotten tremendous brand recognition for this. This is award-winning work, everybody, in case people don't know. We're very proud of that. But how surprised were you at all the yeses? Because I was so impressed by our colleagues.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I think at first I was surprised, and for the same reasons. Most of the things I'm doing, you know, we're driving revenue, we're trying to make the bank safer, more secure in ways. So at first I was, and then they kept piling up. And and at one point I just took a step back, and I think it was at one point, and you're familiar with Progress Awards and some of the work that Citi does in other areas. And I took a step back, and I saw some of the ESG work that Citi does, and I saw some of the broader landscape of our commitment to D&I, and I thought, you know, these kind of things in support for these initiatives is everywhere, and I think a lot of people want to embed it into everything we do. So if you come into, and this was my experience, if you come in and say, this is an important, again, this is a very real, serious problem for our customers and the community, and I think we have a role to play in it. I think a lot of senior leadership looked at it as it was the right thing to do. It's a way that it's an area where we can push things forward and progress them. And I think this was not like other business cases where we're trying to roll out a product and looking at a P&L and things like that. It was, these are our values, and everybody knew it was right. There really wasn't a question about, should we do this or should we not?
Yeah, and for, you know, this is a workplace summit, right, out in Equal. So everyone's here as part of, you know, their own sort of personal and professional development. For other firms in banking and financial services or whatever you might be, if you've got like customers who need to identify themselves in some way, like in our industry, I think the thing to, you know, you never want to position your product as having a flaw, but this is a gap, right? This is, our product presents a challenge for a specific segment of our population. And by the way, an underrepresented segment, right? And so think about that as you're thinking about, how do I sell this in? Like, our sort of general historically non-inclusive approach to design has created a challenge for people to be able to use our product. That's the way to think about this. That's the way to sort of sell this into your organization, because that is really difficult to say, it's not a huge segment. It's not going to generate that much revenue. It's not going to, like, think about what's actually happening here, right? So thank you, Blake. I every day just have been impressed by how our colleagues have shown up. So can you talk a little bit about sort of what it took to do it, meaning to bring it to life? One of the things that I always get asked about is, and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, is about fraud.
Yep.
Right? If we're allowing people to use a name that's different than their legal name, how do we think about fraud and protecting our customers? So just talk about it. You can talk about broadly sort of what it took, but would love for you to talk about that one piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I found, you know, I guess this is the other side of the coin. We had the buy-in, and then everyone was like, all right, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to do this safely? How are we going to make it secure? And how's it still going to work for the customer, right? We can make it really secure, and then you can't use the product, and you can make the product really convenient and then maybe not so secure. So we had to toe the line there. We had to make sure that we could do that. So I think the first thing that we really did, Nikki, is we looked at it, and we wanted, the important thing to me was looking at the customer's experience. And when I realized and realized that we were doing something different and something kind of special, I said, if we're going to ask our customers for their true name, and customers are going to provide it to us. I want to honor that in every touch point. So immediately we started mapping out customers' experiences. Where are touch points with the customers? Where are crucial touch points, right? Human to human interactions, times whenever you might be highly emotive, right? And so what we wanted to do is we had to think through both of those lenses. And so on the customer experience side, we wanted to make sure that we were updating support systems to where anytime you contact us, that we would be able to honor that name. So some examples of that are you log into digital, we have welcome messages. You know, you send you get an email, you'll have your salutation is there. If you need to call us and you need to talk to us about something, the agent would have that right available. So to me, it was really important that if we were going to ask for it, we needed to honor it. And on that secure side, I think at first glance, people think, oh, Citi's just letting people put whatever name they want on credit cards and let them go crazy. No, we have a very real interest in making sure that this is safe for ourselves and customers. Fraud and our monitoring partners were very close with me in making sure that we were defining an experience that was still secure. So in looking at it, and Nikki, I think you helped, test the waters and test the temperatures on this. But what I learned, and I learned so much throughout this project, I'll say that. But what I learned is that although it's not always, you always don't want to provide your legal name, if your dead name in its case, there was some expectation there that is the experience today, and that still is with a bank. So the way that we built this out is we basically built out another space in our backend systems to be able to store the customers' names while also keeping a legal name on file. So I think in doing that, we were able to find a happy medium between keeping this safe and still holding on to that legal name, but only using it in cases where we absolutely had to. And if it was a time where we weren't speaking about something contractual or anything like that, like let's absolutely make a better experience and honor that name that we've asked for.
That's awesome. So we've talked about the product. I know, Blake, before I leave you, you had some questions for the audience as well. Yes?
Yes, I would love that. So my role in digital, and I think a lot of others here would probably say the same, we're always looking for opportunities to get better, always trying to improve ourselves. So I'm curious to hear from the audience, from you all. What are you seeing? Do you have any ideas? So if there are other products or services or ways that you think Citi could tailor their products to help benefit the community, we'd love to hear them. So we do have a Slido open. I have to check the hashtag chosen name. And then we do have a password as well. So if you all need the password, let us know.
It's on the screen now. It's
Great.
HNM5R exclamation point, just to make it simple.
Yeah. Yeah, likewise. And I think, as far as responses from y'all, like I said, we're always looking for ways to improve. So if there are examples where maybe your companies have been really great, and I don't think it has to be external facing, it can be for employees as well. Are there initiatives that, that your companies are thinking through that they should, or they have enabled for either their employees or their customers as well? We'd love to hear them.
Awesome. Thank you, Blake. So we talked about the product. We talked about the agency. We talked about the creative and the photography and behind the scenes and in front of the camera and all of that. What I'd love to do is two things. First, Jen, before I wrap and jump to questions, one of the things that Blake just pointed out, which I know is important at Citi, is the role of inclusion and visibility among our colleagues. We have several initiatives that are really making it easier for us to be ourselves, come bring your whole self to work, identify however you identify, and make it easy to share that as you choose with your colleagues. But I know you play an active role in Egalite at Publicis. Could you talk a little bit about that work and some of the ways that you're really driving inclusivity in your organization?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, and I appreciate you for broaching the topic. I think for me personally, I'm very passionate about leaving the workplace a better place for the next generation than it was for the current generation. And many of you might be surprised by this statistic, but I read it a lot. It's that according to a UCLA study by the Williams Institute, 27% of high school students in California currently do not identify with their birth gender, right? So many of them are using they, them pronouns. So many of them are considering themselves non-binary. And this isn't a trend. This is just that people who are Gen Z are feeling much more comfortable with being who they are because the people around them are much more supportive. And I think the thing that we need to be very cognizant about for ourselves and our employees is that if we are not building a workplace of the future, we are not going to be able to hire premium talent, because people do not want to work at a place where they cannot bring their full self to work. And the most heartbreaking thing that I've had happen recently, and I wrote about it actually just this week, I had students tell me that they're afraid to graduate college because they think it means they have to go back in the closet. Like, I don't want to quote old stats, and I'm afraid they are, but based on the last time I looked at this, only 797 companies in America out of more than 10 million have a perfect rating by the Human Rights Council, right? And like, so do we. And it's fantastic, and I love that number. But like, there are a lot of places where people might have to feel like they have to be afraid to go inside. What can we do to make sure that's not the case? And if we can't make that the case everywhere, how do we make those students know that they can come be safe at our places? How can we bring them in and pull them in? And the sad truth of it is, no matter what we do, it'll never be a fully inclusive space, because there's always going to be thoughts and opinions that may run counter to it. But how do we make sure that we arm our employment base with everything they need to know, with understanding how to learn, how to act, how to work? I think all of those things are very, very important. And I saw somebody ask about stat for the students. It's by the Williams Institute at UCLA. You should be able to look it up. Just type in 27% TGNC, Williams Institute, UCLA. Not that I have it bookmarked and look at it all the time.
So while you were talking, I was going to say it again for the people in the back. That was, yes, we are not, people look at this work and as well as what we do internally for our colleagues, and they think it's some special and really altruistic thing. And in some ways it is, right? We want to do the right thing, but also it is future-proofing our business.
Well,
we
I mean,
will
that's the
fail
thing.
if we are not inclusive and including this community.
That's the thing that's so hard about the work that we do, right? Is we want to do it for the right reason, but we also recognize that in a lot of cases we have to bring a business case. Because if we don't have a business case, people are like, well, yeah, let's check a box and then we're done. But like, if you say, look, 27% of the coming workforce is going to be this way, you're not going to be able to hire them. Like, that's a problem. That is a huge problem. And that workforce isn't far away. It's 5 to 10 years away. And it's going to take five to 10 years of work to get yourself ready to hire these students and these colleagues and these people. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a huge deal that we do these things and we do the work. And as a transgender woman, I think one of the things that I talk about a lot for outwardly, because I do a lot of this kind of work, is even if you don't think you have employees who are transgender, doesn't mean that you don't have employees who are transgender. Like, I didn't transition on my current job, I transitioned at the previous job, and I can tell you something, they didn't think they had any transgender employees either. And so I think it's important that we're always thinking about how can we make a workplace that is best for our current workforce, recognizing that there are probably people in the closet. It's sad to say, but as recently as 3 years ago, more than 50% of all LGBT people still felt like they had to be closeted at work. So that's the kind of work that we do at Egalite to try to make people feel more comfortable being themselves, whether it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, asexual, intersex, two-spirit, however you move forward from there.
Love it. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Before we jump to the chat, because I know there are a lot of questions, August, I just wanted to give one more moment for you. You mentioned the work, and this is how, when I first saw your work, I was like, hire them today. Like, what are we waiting for? But your work with transgender youth, could you talk a little bit about that, how you got involved, and just, you know, the importance of that work?
I would be happy to, and thank you. And I want to quickly say something to what Jen just said, and then I'll get to that. Is, as a photographer, I used to work a lot in Hollywood, and I photographed executives all the time. And I went into an executive's office who was gay, and it occurred to me that I had probably photographed 100 CEOs, presidents, COOs, and he was the first person that was visibly gay in Hollywood. And I had a long talk about it with him, and he said that everyone else is afraid. And I was like, oh my goodness, if you're in Hollywood, that is a problem. So thank you. I'll get to that. So I have, I'm a freelance photographer, a storyteller, and I have a project that I started in 2014, photographing and interviewing transgender, non-binary youth and their parents. And so far it's in the US and in Europe. And when I started it, I identified as gay, and I didn't know that I was trans and non-binary too until I was into the project. So luckily it found me. I don't know what you asked me. It's become the most important thing to me. And the these youth are so bright and vibrant, and you know, any youth that at 4 can say, all the adults around me are wrong, I am sure of something, you know, I know this, and can stand up and say, I've done deep searching and I'm 4, and I'm sure. It's what an incredible person to have in your life. And so I'm trying to think how not to talk about it too much, but I interview the parents from the young ones and the kids, and I have people writing to me saying that you know, they were going to harm themselves and chose not to because they saw someone, because just like I didn't think I could exist, and I see someone who exists and they're like me, and I know I can be okay. And I've had parents write to me and say, I reunited with my kid because I read these. And just like this, it's visibility, like having someone see you and also seeing yourself is, in psychology, one of the biggest predictors of having a successful, happy life. That's what we need. And so the project has been a real gift to me, and also telling stories that aren't sad. You know, they're not sad, they're beautiful. And also speaking to what Jen said is that everyone has something to contribute to me. Everyone has something beautiful about them that needs, that the world is a better place if they get to be themselves. And so I think these youth, I have daughters, these youth are way more mature than my daughters, most of them. You know, anyone who's done that at a young age has so much to offer. And so I want to see these young people be CEOs and artists and work at Citibank and have, you know, be contributing to society and not being afraid that they can't, that their choice is to be who I am or, and have no life, or, you know, the opposite. And that, that we see what a gift, I guess that's it. Like what a gift they are.
100% agree. No, that is beautiful. And August, you too are a gift. Absolutely. Because the work, I mean, I've said enough. Your work is incredible. I just think it's incredible.
It's called Transcending Self, by the way. I don't think I said that.
Sorry, I say it again because I think
it's called Transcending Self.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, let's jump to the chat. We've got a little over 10 minutes left. And so I'm seeing a few questions. I think some of these we've answered. One just very tactical with relation to Citi, and that was a question around, is this just for Mastercard customers, our Mastercard customers? So this is, today, this is just for our branded cards portfolio in the US. I know you probably don't know what that means. It's a Citi technicality, but it does span across networks. So if you've got a Citi branded card in the US and it is not a Mastercard, it's still available to you. And so that's the answer to that question. And also we are working, the most I can say is that we are actively working to expand the availability of this feature. So stay tuned for more to come. Okay, next question. Sorry. Oh, I don't know if we talked about this, but this is a good one. Basically, how was the Citi ERG, the LGBTQIA plus ERG, involved in the launch of Chosen Name? And we call it our Pride Network. Blake, you can jump in if I miss anything here, but we actually partnered, first of all, in addition to partnering with our Pride Network on what we call empathy training. So we did training for our customer service organization and those folks who are interacting with our customers and clients every day, but we also did empathy training for our entire colleague base, because if we're going to be championing this work in this community, it's important that we all understand, not just those of us who are interacting with customers live, but also people in design, people in risk, people in accounting, people in finance. We all need to understand the value that being more inclusive and driving visibility has, not just on society, but very directly on Citi. So Jen, I think you participated in one of those sessions, actually. We bring Jen back all the time. And so that was led by our Pride Network. But in addition to that, we actually had the head of our New York Pride Network as a core member of our team. So she was extremely engaged and integrated. So we didn't just, sort of consult with them and partner with them, although we did do that. We also had them be a core part of the working team to bring this team to life. So they were very, very engaged and integrated in what we do. Lovely question about how can I get my company to actually work on this. Actually, there are two questions that I'm going to sort of link together, and I'd love to get the panel's perspective. So one, how can I get my company to work on this? The other, which is I think related, is what advice do you have for industries that are struggling to break out of the male cisgender narrative? Because I think that's what drives the inability to get your company to work on this, right? Is that there is a way that we've done business and how we've thought about business historically that is different. To Jen's point, as she laid out those stats, it's different to how we need to be thinking about things going forward. So I don't want to plant a seed as the answer. I've got some thoughts in my head, but Jen, since you're off mute, I'd love to turn this over to you first.
I think the hardest thing that we need to do is we need to help people get out of the mindset of a focus group of one. I think we see our leadership see themselves and they think that, well, I like this, so everybody likes this, or I don't like this, so nobody likes this. Or the hardest part, we talked about it with business cases earlier, what's going to be the bottom line return on something like this? And I'm not going to quote any more stats at you because I've given you enough numbers, but I've done some research in which showcases the fact that consumers are more willing to buy into brands that have that showcase diverse talent across their ads, that showcase a diverse set of experiences for their employees. That the numbers are astronomical, and it's not just in terms of what their sales are, it's also actually in terms of investment opportunities within the company for people who are going and purchasing stocks and bonds. There was I believe it was, I believe Deloitte, one of Deloitte's subsets actually did some research that showcased this, and some things that I've done to actually pitch within my own company as reasons why we need to be doing this and making sure that we're doing a better job of showcasing diverse talent in our ads, and making sure that we're doing enough to make sure that we're being diverse within ourselves too. I apologize, I will not quote that stat because I do not know the stat directly, but there are things that you can research from that perspective that have been done before that I think can help you put together a very strong business case for the reason why diversity matters. Beyond why we all know, right? I think that's a big part of it. Like, we all know we should be, but how do we convince people we should be? And I think those are the stats that we need to be able to prove it out.
Blake or August, not to put you on the spot, but is there anything that you'd like to add? If not, I have stuff.
No, I can. I mean, I freelance, right? So I don't have. I have my business, but there's a mistake in businesses that they're targeting that the only people buying things are cis, straight, white males, but that is clearly not true. Are the only people with money. And I think an idea from business that if I want to be successful, I need to leave most of the population out just doesn't make sense. So getting people to see that, you know, if the purpose of the business is to make a profit, that you are going to make a profit if you're inclusive. You know, if you include everyone, you are more likely to be successful. And I think that is often left out of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Nikki, just one more thought there. I think the important thought, if you're looking at businesses and how to adopt, I think it's great to look inside first. You've got to be taking care of your employees. You've got to be recognizing your employees. And if you're not doing that, I think it's really hard to run a business that's trying to do the same for clients. So I think if you're in a place where you feel like there's opportunity and maybe it's not being heard, I would start with the inside of the house before the out. I would get that in order before trying to tackle, trying to provide. I mean, both of those are great fronts, but I think tactically it makes sense to start and make sure you have a great experience for the employees that are there.
Can I add to that real quick? Just a quick point on that. I think that's really important because as we know, as LGBTQIA plus people, right? If a company is marketing to us as a part of rainbow capitalism versus actual genuineness, and we know that because of the stories we hear about how they treat their employees, like, I think that's a big part of a conversation that doesn't get had enough, is that you shouldn't be preaching outwards until you can at least prove that you're preaching inwards, because it just comes across as disingenuous and it's not something that we can do. So I think that's really important. Like, I think that's a great point.
100% agree. The only thing I would add in our last couple of minutes is, and I say this all the time, don't waste a good crisis. So we are in a moment right now where, we've gone through COVID, which has impacted so many people, not just in this country, but around the world. And I know we've got a global audience on today. We're seeing massive change, cultural changes across the world. Mexico just legalized abortion. I mean, I would have never thought that would happen. We've gone through a racial reckoning, not just in this country, but around the world, and are still going through it. Little bit of inside baseball here. Blake and I were pushing this work forward, but we were climbing an uphill battle, unfortunately, until the murder of George Floyd. And all of a sudden, we got so much additional funding. We got so much additional attention because people woke up, and it wasn't just a reaction to, oh, now I need to pay attention because it's the thing to do. It was, oh, crap, sorry. This is important, and we haven't been, as many great things as our firm has been doing for years, we haven't been giving our full attention to some things that we need to. And so that's where we are now. And if you are in a firm that is starting to focus on gender pay equity and racial equity and all of those things, this is part of it. And don't waste that attention and focus on inclusion that's happening across the world right now without raising this as something that needs to get your firm's attention. So don't waste a good crisis is my closing thought. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Huge thank you to August and Jen and Blake for joining. Thank you to the audience for listening in and for the great questions. I also have to thank my team for pulling this together and making this happen. So Elliot and Laura, I know you're back there. Thank you. And thank you to the folks at Out and Equal for having us. This has been a really special, it's been a special summit, as it will continue to be, but a really great conversation. And I have to give one last shout out to the summit attendee who sent me the most amazing message about how this work in particular has impacted their life. And I just, you know, you make my day, my week, my year. We love to hear it. So if you want to learn more, you can learn more from a Citi perspective at citi.com/update-my-name. And we will put links to the videos that we shared on the platform. I forget what it's called. So we will share that with everyone. All right, on the portal. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.
Awesome presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did awesome, everybody. It was great. Thank you.